Everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews. Today we're doing a Hong Kong review for EUREKA's lineup for Warriors 2. This is part of the Dual Pack Edition, Warriors 2 and Prodigal Son. Haven't got a chance to see Prodigal Son just yet. That will be in a separate video. I figured for this kind of, setup, best to do as kind of a part 1, part 2, and to kind of explore both films separately. For very good reason, for sure, which I'm about to get into. But this is a fantastic edition from EUREKA. Not many people like the artwork for this. I don't mind it too much. It's not everyone's kind of cup of tea. I do understand that, but I think it does sell the film quite nicely. I like the colour scheme, the orange and blues. Really nice edition as well, nice limited edition set, which comes with a poster, which is great. There you go. The artwork, and you also get the alternative artwork, which actually I do prefer the actual original artwork for the film. I think the Warriors 2 poster is really fantastic. I think it looks really good for sure. You get a nice little booklet, deep depth kind of booklet, which kind of really dives into the making of the films themselves. Dives into kind of Warriors 2 and Prodigal Son, behind the scenes, what's going on in terms of the making of it, all that kind of stuff. Really great edition. You know the score, you know the jazz kind of guys. EUREKA, 88 films, Arrow. Fantastic editions coming out recently. Hard to keep up, hard to keep on top of these reviews, but I'm so glad I did, because Warriors 2 is fucking fantastic. Whoa, no, stop the trailer. No, not doing any of that. Let's get straight to it. Warriors 2, released in 1978, directed by Sammo Hung, second feature debut from the Iron Fisted Monk, which he did in 1977. This was his second film he did. How was that possible? Iron Fisted Monk is very much a kind of very old school kind of traditional. It's a really good first effort from Sammo Hung. I haven't got around to reviewing it just yet, part of that edition, but I will do at some point. But I think as a first feature film goes, it's not particularly amazing. I think it's very just an okay film. It's got the kind of the style, it's got the energy of Sammo Hung, it's got the action, but it has a lot of other stuff which I don't particularly like. Very questionable sequences, very questionable kind of choices within the kind of the narrative. Doesn't quite deliver. But yeah, a year later he does this film, Warriors 2, which completely blew me away. Absolutely fantastic. This is the perfect example of what I mean about what you're going to get with a Sammo Hung type movie. You're going to get 90s kind of buddy cop kind of sex comedies with the kind of the twinkle movies. Are you going to get a really fantastic collaboration of talent with like Millions Express? Are you going to get like a Dragon Trio with Jackie Chan? I think Sammo works really well when he's collaborating with other people and when he's got a much more of a focused type of goal in mind. This film is trying to break new ground within Golden Harvest and trying to go away from the kind of traditional kind of Shaw Brothers type of setup with the Iron Fisted Monk, Maleficent Butcher and Eastern Condors are really good kind of examples of 3 stages within a couple of years of each in terms of the kind of the martial arts fight sequences, in terms of entertainment, in terms of story. This feels so style of fights, style of action, style of comedy that I would see later on within the 80s, not within this kind of early period of his career. Warriors 2 focuses on 2 main characters that have to rise to the occasion, have to go through the challenges and the trials of kind of Wing Chun to basically take on this kind of evil businessman and his ruthless killers. They're basically taking over this town, they've set up a bank, they've come from place to place, and they want to kind of seize power. Any rival masters or kind of, any warriors that basically can challenge my authority, that I can do it sneakily, behind the scenes, in a very devious type of way, trick people into doing certain things. And this film basically is 2 characters that are wrapped up in this kind of like revenge assassination plot through this kind of rival evil businessman, and they have to kind of go through the challenge of learning Wing Chun through the kind of portion of the film to take on basically all the killers. Golden Harvest's take on Shaw Brothers, but just kind of modernizing it for the time that it is meant to be modernized. This is 1978, and it does things in this film that I wouldn't expect to see within that time frame. I expect this to be a lot later, within the 80s. Even some of the 80s films from Hong Kong cinema don't do the same level of stuff in this film that I would expect to see. Always an absolute pleasure going into these kind of Hong Kong movies without expectations, without seeing the trailer, without knowing too much about the film. I knew more about Prodigal Son than I did about Warriors 2, and I got an absolute banger of a film. Fantastic. This film has so much to offer in terms of not only kind of introducing a new wave of entertainment that Sammo Hung has clearly got the skill set for, which obviously does for later films, but second feature film in, doing this level of quality with Golden Harvest. extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. Not only is he kind of playing this kind of like comic relief type character, very kind of similar we usually expect to see within Sammo Hung type movies, but he also really kind of rises to the occasion. He has some absolutely brilliant sequences. Our main leading character, Casanova Wong, who is a character basically who hasn't got the right skill set to take on the bad guys. First portion of this film is setting up the characters, setting up the treachery and all these characters are. Sammo Hung's very much like a bumbling kind of businessman, someone who's kind of being picked on, and he's got a little bit of skill set, but you know, he's kind of mocked and he's kind of taking the piss off because he's also known as being fatty. He always plays a kind of a gimmick of himself a little bit in the films. Very much the comic relief of the good portion of the film. And you got our main character, Casanova Wong, who's someone who is very honourable, someone who's just learning the craft, who just wants to be a very honourable kind of, student. And he kind of gets wrapped up in this kind of revenge plot. He kind of gets tricked by some company of very devious kind of characters, and his kind of life is kind of up for grabs. He's wanted by kind of like the businessman, and there's a assassination plot against kind of the mayor, who is basically they want to seize power and they want to seize control of this kind of town and get rid of any threat that kind of comes in their way. And you feel the tension of this film, you feel the kind of like the pulse of this film, which I think is really fantastic. It has some great kind of sense of comedy. All the comedy really hits in the film. I think it's really funny, it's really light-hearted, but also knows when to be appropriately serious, appropriately kind of violent, and respect the craft. The kind of second portion of this film is basically a really kind of long sequence about the Wing Chun training on screen, and it's very kind of respectful, it's very traditional, it's very honourable to that craft, and it takes the time to kind of treat you, the audience, with respect and treat the craft with respect. This is going to take you a long time to kind of learn it properly. This is kind of like steering away a little bit from the traditional kind of Shaw Brothers type movies that have very traditional type of fight sequence, a traditional type of martial art, a bit more cinematic, a bit more kind of stylized a little bit. It has different forms of it kind of thing within the film, a little bit of pole fighting, different types of tactics kind of thing with knives and swords and all sorts of things like that. The main master of the film, who's kind of the expert in the kind of Wing Chun kind of field, who was kind of very legendary, very kind of kick-ass and badass in the film. Great kind of character as well, great performer also by the main actor, who's teaching both characters how to go through the craft kind of thing, and teaching them the patience. And a lot of the foreshadows are in this kind of second portion of the film really kind of pays off a lot within the third act. I love the kind of the wooden men kind of sequence you have in the film, where he's kind of taking on two wooden men, but he's also surprising the third person, and really building these characters up and really kind of get them to a good level, saying this ain't going to be easy, this is going to be a lot of hard work, but if you want this kind of tactic, if you want to do this. And through that, I think the film has a really good respectful nature of the craft and does something very different that I wouldn't expect to see from a traditional kind of Hong Kong movie kind of thing. I know it's very Golden Harvest and it's very much a new wave of these types of movies, but Sammo's got a really good keen eye in this film, not just in terms of cinematography, in terms of editing, in terms of comedy, but appreciation for the craft, and very much that kind of Peking opera, jumping about, kind of doing these kind of elaborate kind of sequences, incorporating that to a craft that wasn't really seen during that kind of time, makes for a really entertaining film that not only respects the kind of the past, but also embraces a new wave of kind of Hong Kong movies that are coming in. I can see why people calling this his first masterpiece film. I would absolutely probably agree with that, because I think this is a massive step up from Iron Fisted Monk, and given the fact he did kind of Magnificent Butchers and then Eastern Condors a lot later on, and obviously some of the Jackie Chan films that we all kind of know and love, this was extraordinary. I think this is definitely one of my favourite Sammo Hung movies, and this is the type of Sammo Hung film that I crave to see, that I love to see on screen. Something that is so well crafted, that's so well executed, and knows when to take itself seriously, knows when to do the comedy, knows when to be a bit slower and have character moments, character arcs in the film. And both the main characters, I think, are really well performed. Also in it has some brilliant sequences in terms of kind of like going against the main kind of Wing Chun master within the kind of the traditional dining sequence. I always make a joke that me and my friend, basically every single Hong Kong film, every time there's a Hong Kong fight, it's usually within a kind of diner type scene. And it's always really fun because the tables are getting broken, chairs are getting broken, windows getting pushed over. And it's like, surely there's going to be a bit of a business for that. Surely someone's going to open up a kind of a tavern where you can just do your battles and do your duels within this kind of like location, because every single Hong Kong film has it. It's just a really funny kind of thing. But one of the sequences in the film that I really liked and I thought was really kind of like intense and really kind of crazy in terms of the way it kind of goes about it was the basically the setup for the Wing Chun master. They use every type of kind of booby trap, every type of setup, every type of cheat they could possibly do in this type of sequence. They're throwing 15 guys plus 2 proper pro level kind of, arm martial art experts. They're using knives, they're using kind of, bear traps, they're using every type of sneaky type of moves. They're trying to stab him from behind. This character is basically taking the absolute beating. They want him dead, they want him out of the picture, and he is putting up the biggest fight ever. He takes on so many of them despite the kind of limitations of a bear trap and being stabbed behind the back and being constantly cheated left, right and centre kind of thing. He puts up one of the biggest fights ever in the film, and it's absolutely fantastic. It shows his capability, shows how strong he is as an actual character, as an actual fighter, and how devious these people are willing to go to take him out. Really brilliant fight sequence, really fantastic, intense sequence in the film that really changes up the kind of the pace of the film, which leads into the third act, which alters a lot of the tone, a lot of the kind of the build-up and the foreshadowing that this film has been building up to. Every kind of character in the film gets a major fight sequence. Sammo Hung gets a really incredible one within this kind of like wooden type of area kind of thing. He has to take on this guy who basically using sound to kind of take each other on, very Daredevil like kind of thing, and that's a really good, nice, tense sequence because it's about different type of tactics. It's using the environment to your advantage and getting those kind of quick moves in you need to when you can during pitch black. And even when Sammo succeeds in that kind of fight sequence, there's a nice kind of moment where he's basically just reminiscing on the fact he just killed someone. This is the first time the character's probably done that in the film. This is quite rare in a Hong Kong movie. Usually it's kind of skipped over quite quickly, or it's to the next fight sequence, or usually killing is just very breezy kind of thing. A lot of fight sequence, a lot of these kind of Hong Kong movies, but kind of takes a moment to reflect and to kind of like just kind of take it in and kind of take a breather kind of thing, and then he sets up for the next fight scene that happens within the kind of the little kind of dojo kind of location. The main kind of character is getting all the big bosses, of course. He's taking all the big bad guys and, all the main kind of villains that have been set from the entire film, and he takes on them really well, and it's really incredible fight sequences, really crazy stunts, kind of, flying over tables and just doing these amazing kind of sequences. Truly a spectacle, and you get some kind of nice kind of change up a little bit with Sammo Hung when he gets introduced, when he catches up and gets back into the actual dojo itself. A really horrible sequence with the kind of this female character that's been basically also is part of the kind of the teachings a little bit, and she gets a really nasty death from a double sword, and just escalation, the build-up is really fantastic in the film, all leading to our main bad guy, which I don't want to say too much just in case people haven't seen it, but the twist and reveal of that is really, really good, and I didn't see it coming, and it's actually quite, again, a nice surprise to see. And he's got a very different type of martial arts style. He's got this kind of mantis kind of style, this kind of creature kind of thing, and he's got different types of pressure points he can do, and his different types of fight sequence. Very slimy, and kind of his kind of look, his kind of black robes and his kind of pale face and bold kind of expression, just really kind of intimidating, really kind of sells this kind of like snake kind of like character kind of thing. And the fact the twist comes about it along the way it does is really kind of delivers a lot for sure. Overall, Warriors 2 delivers exactly what I want to see within a Hong Kong movie. It has excellent comedy, excellent sense of style in terms of its directing. It has some very fantastic pacing. It has a very honourable, very kind of history, kind of looking through the kind of the traditions of Wing Chun. Very respectful, but also takes its time to kind of establish like those fight sequences and establish the setups. Both characters go for an excellent kind of journey from start to finish. Great bad guys, some really kind of slimy characters, which I absolutely loved. Some great sense of like, escalation as well. Really brilliant kind of third act twist, which I didn't see coming. A brilliant sequence with the Wing Chun master within the Tavern. Just has a lot of positivity around this film, and this is his second feature film from Sammo Hung. Just amazing, absolutely truly amazing. What do you think of the film? Please comment down below. What do you think of Prodigal Son? Is it going to live up to the same level as this film does? Very curious to see what your thoughts and opinions, guys. So in the meantime, after the reviews, signing out.